Hello, my name is Kimberly Medina, and today I'm going to be talking about superstitions. I'm going to be making a little cap. So what a superstition is pretty much a belief in supernatural beings. It was heavily used and it was a very common thing to do. So why is it now rarely used and most things have lost their meaning? How did superstitions become so irrelevant after time? We will have to date back into the medieval times to talk about this. So superstitions were heavily used around this time, and it was used along with magic. They had this book called the Leech Book, which is pretty much today's version of the Bible, and it pretty much showed many ways to perform magic. Some of the spells it carried were for protection, finding lost things, healing, and even future vision. So once the Renaissance came around, it introduced Christianity, and many claimed to be religious, but the truth is that none of them even knew how to read the Bible, and they would still perform magic. It wasn't only the common folk that would involve magic or religion together. The royalty also had their form of magic, which they would call the royal touch. So back then, there was a disease they would call scrofula, or the king's eagle, going around and infecting many people. And what it was just a tuberculosis infection on the neck. And if doctors couldn't heal the patients, they'd ask the kings or queens to help. The way they would heal the patients was by the king or queen reaching out their hand and touching them on the neck. This simple touch would magically heal them, and it was seen as very effective. The reason people believed that kings had the power of healing was because once they would get chosen to be king, they would get anointed on their hands and only their hands with blessed oil from the church. And since it was from the church, it was Catholic, and since it was Catholic, it must have come from heaven. So heaven would give them the gift of healing. Like the royal touch, looking at the stars was another way to help heal people. Doctors would define medical issues and/or injuries to people by the stars in the sky, and they would do this by either consulting the stars for answers or astronomers. The reason they would do this was because they believed that stars were controlled by the angels, and obviously the angels were right on everything. Everything was good with magic and superstition until idolatry came into play. So as time passed by, the Christians and Protestants were growing more and more concerned by the popularity that superstition and magic had. They would preach about how magic was tied to idolatry, the worst sin of all, and that sin angered God the most. Many were scared to be on God's bad side, but not everyone would confide. So they did what was best, the witch hunts. The witch hunts came through shortly after this, and many were murdered. And it went a little overboard, and people would kill people that seemed even a little bit suspicious. If you were a woman who lived alone, you were considered a witch, therefore killed immediately. So fast forward a few years into the future, and we have the pigeon experiment. So what this is pretty much a scientist named B.F. Skinner performed an experiment to see animal behaviors, but the results he got were surprising. So he gathered up a few pigeons and he starved them, only for the sake of this experiment, obviously. And he put them in a box. And he would feed these pigeons just a little bit for certain times of the day. At the end, he caught them moving their heads in circular motions and even walking in clockwise circles to receive their food. He concluded that pigeons are like humans, which they put their meaning in meaningless things to have reasons. Example of this can be superstitions. Like a lucky charm, you have it, so you must be able to succeed in what you're putting your effort in. Like a game. People use superstitions as an excuse to judge how they perform their actions and efforts. Okay, so how does this answer our questions? How did superstition become irrelevant after time? And the answer is honestly simple. They're still around, just different. Society still performs magic and superstitious acts without even noticing. For example, saying bless you. That was considered a spell in the medieval times, and people believed that if you were to sneeze, an evil spirit or a demon would see that as an opportunity to enter your mouth and possess you. So they would say the words, God bless you, in order to be blessed and not let the demons in your mouth and to possess you. And just like that, the rise and fall of superstitions. And though they were heavily seen as bad, many people would still perform these acts of magic and superstition, and they won't even know it. Superstition influenced generations of ideas and will continue to play a major role in our society today. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video, and honestly, this is just for an English project, so please just ignore this. I finished my cat, and here are some other figures.